The regular season is over. The playoffs are about to start. I'm going to go through my picks for the playoffs. I'm going to go back and look at the season win totals as well. What I got right, what I got wrong. As we begin our recap of the regular season, Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Tralalelo Tralala, and I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com. And thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free, and we are available on all platforms. Go ahead and check out lockedondaily.com. We've got the prizes over there. 3 people who sign up for Locked On Daily, which is the free newsletter for your favorite team, before the end of April will receive a gift card. Either it's $2,500 for Best Buy. We've got Game Time gift cards and Fanatics gift cards as well. So get across and sign up over there, and also double bang over here and hit the thumb and leave your comments as we begin our off-season journey. What we said we're going to do is what we're doing. We're doing playoff previews. We're going to do award stuff, real life, and not in today's show. This is what's planned over the next couple of weeks. I'm going to do real life awards and fantasy awards. We're going to do recaps of busts and sleepers and what we got right and what we got wrong and how we looked at the do not drafts and all that sort of stuff, what made sense and what didn't. And as always, context goes into all of this stuff. And then we start some team reviews and we do free agency stuff and NBA draft stuff. There's a whole bunch of content coming out. Dynasty League stuff is coming as well. So that is all on the way and we're ready to get there. It is Jackie Robinson Day. So shout out to Jackie Robinson. Shout out to the number 42. As we look over the playoffs and we look at the play-in, the introduction of the play-in I think has been very good for the NBA as a general rule. It's annoying for me doing playoff previews because I don't know who some of the matchups are going to be. But that's okay. I've got a fair idea, and who wins or loses those play-in games doesn't really impact my decisions in those first-round series for seeing who I think is going to win or anything like that. But we'll start with talking about actually a couple of things that did happen. Mike Budenholzer got fired, one of the more obvious firings we've ever seen. It just doesn't make sense that they fire a coach every year. Not really. Does anything that franchise does make sense? Also, not really. I've got no idea who they're going to hire. Will it make much of a difference? I thought that Budenholzer coming in would do a little bit more Budenholzer stuff, but he didn't. The Budenholzer system is usually, hey, let's play drop, let's protect the rim, let's try to manage our players' minutes a little bit more, and none of that really happened. We got a small uptick in three-point shooting, but not really, and we didn't get management of minutes at all. It was just do whatever you want. And the Suns are going to be very, very different, obviously, as KD is almost definitely not playing for this team again. I expect that Devin Booker is, but I don't know, and I don't know what happens with Bradley Beal. There's so much to happen with that team who, spoiler alert, when we get to looking at my season over win total stuff, they're one that I got horribly wrong. Horribly wrong. And I probably won't make that mistake again. The other firing was David Griffin in New Orleans. I don't really understand firing David Griffin if you're going to keep Willie Green. That makes no sense at all. The new GM coming in surely wants to bring in a coach of his own choosing, because it's not like Willie Green's good. It's not like he's a legend of the game and he's been awesome. Like, what is the point of this? My first job as GM coming into the Pelicans would be to fire Willie Green, which I guess the GM has the ability to do that. He's got to negotiate it with the owners and payouts, but that would be my first thing I do. Hey, I'm the new GM, new coach, see you later. Like, that's exactly what I would do. But, I don't know, was David Griffin wrong in some of his decisions? Sure. Did he get completely killed by injuries to Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, the player that he traded chips in for, DeJounte Murray? Yeah, that hurts. Did he do very well in the Anthony Davis trade? Yeah, he did. But it doesn't mean that everything's been perfect. And I get it. They needed to be a decision to move on. They just got to move on from the coach. And also in Portland, they've extended both their GM and their head coach. And I know that the Blazers, another one that I did get wrong in the off-season, preseason win totals. I don't think Chauncey Billups is the guy, though. I don't really understand the point of extending him. Like, he's fine. It's not true. I thought he was the worst coach in the NBA, and he's definitely been better than that this season. I still don't think he's a particularly good coach, but they did have significant improvements this season, and that is partially to do, largely to do with what Chauncey was able to do. It's not all that, but I don't know. Not sure I would have been like, yeah, he's our guy, because I don't really think he should be, but that's okay as well. So let's talk play-ins now. let's talk about what these games look like and who I think is going to win them, and then we can move into the playoff predictions.
Go.
But we'll start here by looking at these play-in games, and the first one we're going to take a look at is, we're going to go the 7 and 8 games, because they're the first games that are on. So, the Atlanta Hawks and the Orlando Magic. In the Eastern Conference is that first game. It's in Orlando. It's an interesting one. Obviously, we don't expect the Clint Capella is returning for the Hawks. We know that Jalen Johnson's not. We know that Jalen Suggs isn't playing for the Magic. So we're just sort of getting the teams that we saw at the end of the season. And they've been disappointing, to say the least, in one of the more disappointing divisions in the entire NBA. The other 7-8 game is the Memphis Grizzlies going to take on the Golden State Warriors. The Grizzlies had one of the worst trade deadlines you could ever imagine. They were the number 2 seed. And they made moves to get worse this season for no reason outside of potentially maybe saving their owner money in the future. Actually, no reason whatsoever. They deliberately made their team worse. They traded away Marcus Smart. They traded away Jake LaRavia. They traded away a first-round pick, which might end up being pick 17 or pick 18. And to be honest, if they don't make the playoffs, they don't actually trade that first-round pick away. But what's worse, you preserve that first-round pick or the fact that you were the 2 seed and didn't make the playoffs. Either way, it's terrible. And they got Johnny Davis and Marvin Bagley back, and they waived Johnny Davis. Just horrendous GM. Some of the worst decision-making you could ever see. Golden State made a move at the trade deadline, and it made them get to this position because they were nowhere really near this, and adding Jimmy Butler was huge for them, and he was massive in getting them to this spot. So that's where we sit with the 2 7 and 8 games. For the 7 and 8 game, I am going to take the Atlanta Hawks. Why? I just think that Orlando's complete lack of offense or lack of shooting, yeah, there's Paolo and Franz, but I think that they can obviously have bad shooting nights. And there's just so little other stuff around those guys that I find it difficult to get excited about what they can bring. Trae Young is the best passer in this game. He's the most dynamic shooter and outside player and scorer in this game. And I think that's going to be, look, obviously the Magic could attack him if they had good offense, but they don't. They're some of the worst offense you've ever seen. Now, they've got one of the best defense you've ever seen, but without Jalen Suggs there, that does make it harder. And I think it'll be close. And if Orlando wins this, I don't really think there's too much of a shock or surprise in it. But I do think Atlanta will be able to get this victory. It's close to me. I'm not saying that it's an easy victory. I'm not saying it's obviously a clear move to get there. But when I'm trying to compare some of these guys, like Dyson Daniels' defense is awesome, Trae Young's passing is awesome, Banchero and Franz are good, but then you're talking about Wendell Carter Jr., or we're looking at if Orlando is starting Corey Joseph, or is Cole Anthony, is it Anthony Black? That's not good, man. That's a real problem. If I want to go to the next one, which I do, which is in the Western Conference, the 7v8 game there, Memphis and Golden State, well, I am going to go with Golden State because Memphis is spiraling. They've got a new coach in Thomas Isalo. Steve Kerr is obviously coaching the Warriors. Interestingly, they didn't play Jonathan Kuminga at all in the last game because he is bad. And yeah, he can be better in certain... He is almost the perfect example, Kuminga, of a guy that would move on to... If John Kuminga played for the Chicago Bulls, he'd be averaging 25, 7, and 3 with 2 steals, and people would be talking about him as an All-NBA player. But, he's on a team that's real, and they don't need to play him. Anyway, that's beside the point there. We don't expect there's any significant issue. Obviously, Jalen Wells is out for the Grizzlies, and the Warriors don't have any of those significant injury concerns, although Butler did cop a bit of a knock to the thigh, and we know Jimmy Butler, if he's going to get hurt, well, he's going to get hurt. That is what he does. Which playoff Jimmy do we get? Do we get the good one, or do we get the one that sucks? Because they both exist. Both of those players exist. There's many, many examples of Jimmy being terrible in the playoffs, and there's examples of him being great, but there are examples of him being terrible. So we'll see how that goes. I just think that Golden State having Steph and Jim and Draymond and his defensive abilities and some play from Podziemski and maybe Buddy Hield is able to shoot well. Who knows? And they've got home court advantage. So I will take Golden State over Memphis, and Memphis is just spiraling. The thing is, last time we saw these teams match up, we got a lot of Zach Edey, which is not what had happened in the past. A lot of minutes for Zach Edey, and there is a chance that his size could overwhelm. I don't think it'll be the case, but that is possible. But I'm going to go with Golden State over Memphis in this one. If we go to the other play-in games, then we'll get to the actual playoff stuff. the 9 and 10 games. Now, obviously, the winners of these games then need to play the loser of the 7 and 8 games. You've got Miami and Chicago and Dallas and Sacramento. I am going to take Miami over Chicago. I know that Chicago's got the better record. I know that the Kobe White and Josh Giddey have been playing well of late, but I just think that the best player in this matchup is Bam Adebayo. I think that the second best player is debatable, but it's possibly Tyler Hero. And then you've got the Bulls without any real sort of forward-sized players, and Andrew Wiggins is there. And you've got Giddey, and you've got White, and there's Buzelis, and there's Vooch, and all they're solid enough players. And the coaching advantage to me goes to Spoelstra, even though he has been a little bit spotty this season. I do think Miami beat Chicago, but like with Atlanta and Orlando, I think it's pretty close. Like, I don't think that it's an outrageous suggestion to think that Chicago wins this, and actually, they might even cook them. It's possible, because Miami has been bad for a lot of the season. But I am going to take Spoelstra in a one-off game here, pushing Miami through to the next play-in scenario. And the next one is one that I think is obvious, but maybe it's not, because there is no Malik Monk for the Sacramento Kings. But I do think that they will beat Dallas. Dallas still obviously not looking great, and I think there's going to be minutes limits still on like Gafford and Lively, and Anthony Davis has not been himself at all. Their ball handling stuff is not good, and Brandon Williams actually got hurt in the last game after getting that contract converted, and you're relying upon Klay Thompson and Spencer Dinwiddie. Yeah, I think that one is probably the most obvious one, and that's Sacramento beating Dallas. But maybe Anthony Davis is able to turn it on. That's possible. I'm not really expecting that, though. We're going to come back and look at the playoffs, and we're going to go to win totals as well. Today's episode, though, it is brought to you by Hungry Root. And with spring here, life is busier than ever. You got work, family, and everything that's in between. So grocery shopping, that can be a real drain on your time. Meal prep, well, geez, that's another thing that's a real pain. That is why Hungry Root can make eating healthy, getting delicious meals that are simple and stress-free. It's like having your own personal shopper, the old Hungry Root is. It's a nutritionist as well, wrapped into one. They take care of the grocery shopping and the meal planning, offering personalized recommendations based on your tastes and your health goals. It tailors your orders based on what you like and what you don't like, and it gets smarter every time. With their high-quality nutritionist food, you can stick to your gut-friendly, your high-protein diet, whatever it is, without spending hours planning, and the meals come together in 15 minutes or less, giving you more time for whatever it is that you want to do. Take advantage of this exclusive deal. Get 40% off your first box, plus a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA. That is hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. The code is LockedOnNBA for 40% off and a lifetime free item. Okay, now we can talk about the playoffs. Playoffs? Let's start with the Western Conference in the playoffs. Let's take a look at how those matchups play out again. We don't exactly know how all this looks because the results of the play-in, but I'm just going to tell you what I think is going to happen irrespective of those matchups. The first matchup is the Oklahoma City Thunder, the 1 seed, and based on what I think will happen is that the Warriors will beat Memphis, so then the Thunder will play the winner of Memphis-Sacramento, which I believe will be Memphis, but I've put both of those teams there. I don't care. Like, I think the Thunder are going to sweep whoever it is, even if it's Golden State. Maybe it goes to 5 if it's Golden State, but I'm fairly confident in the Oklahoma City Thunder winning that matchup 4-0 against Memphis or Sacramento or Dallas, maybe 4-1, probably not, if it's Golden State. The next matchup is, again, my assumption is that Golden State beats Memphis. Now, Memphis could beat Golden State, and then they would have to play the Houston Rockets as the 2 seed. If Memphis was to win and play the Rockets, well, I actually don't know that this would change at all. I've got the Rockets winning that one in 5. Against the Warriors, the Grizzlies, it might actually move to 4. I think the Rockets are healthy. They've got Ime Udoka and his defensive principles. Now, the problem is that maybe Fred VanVleet shoots 10%, which is not far off his usual numbers. But Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, you've got Jabari Smith spacing, you've got Şengün, you've got whatever the hell it is that Steven Adams is doing. And I think that's going to be enough for the Rockets to be able to push through, and plus they've got whatever Jalen Green's able to do. Is he able to be good? Like he might be bad. There's a real because this is the Rockets' first run in the playoffs, obviously, with this group of players. They haven't done this before, and their experience in the playoffs is VanVleet, which is key. Dylan Brooks, key. Steven Adams, key. So they've got a great mix of playoff experience, deep playoff experience with VanVleet, and to a lesser extent Brooks and Adams. But then young, athletic defense, some shooting. I really think that they're an interesting team. Let's see how far they can go. But I think they beat the Rockets. I think they beat the Warriors, in 5 games. The Lakers and the Wolves is an intriguing series. I am going to take the Lakers in 6, and I know it's not usually considered the way to go to take the home team to win in 6 because that means they've got to close out Game 6 on the road. I don't really care about that. I think that is a comment that gets overblown so much because there are plenty of 6-game series that get won by the top seed. It happens all the time. But we seem to have this idea, well, it's got to be, if it's the 1 seed, they've got to win in 5 or in 7. Or, why would they win in, people pick sweeps all the time, don't they? That means that the higher seeded team wins on the road. It happens a lot. So I'm not worried about that at all. I think that's an overblown narrative angle thing. So I'm going to take the Lakers in 6. The Wolves do have some defensive things they can do. Obviously, Randall out there is not great, but McDaniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Gobert. Now, I know that people say Luka just destroys Gobert, is exposed in the playoffs every year. Blatantly false. Just not true at all. Gobert does not get exposed in the playoffs at all. He's a very good defender still. I think the Lakers are going to win. I think having Luka and LeBron is a huge advantage. Anthony Edwards was great and can step it up. But also, again, much like playoff Jimmy, and Edwards was great, except for all the games that he was bad. And he was bad for a lot of games last season in the playoffs. It is not a blanket thing. They can elevate, and again, this is where highlight reel and media bias comes in. He can elevate and have great games. And he also had some absolutely stinkingly terrible games in the playoffs. Ant did last season. Really bad. And that's possible too. So I'm going to Lakers in 6 over the Wolves. And the last series is Denver and the Clippers. The Clippers were just an amazing season from them. They finished on 50 wins after Paul George left for nothing and Kawhi Leonard didn't play half the season because James Harden was ridiculous. Ivica Zubac was ridiculous. And I think they're going to beat Denver. I've got them winning in 7. Yes, again, you've got to win on the road, in altitude, and maybe the lower seed has to win in 6. Again, whatever. I think this Clippers team, with the way that Kawhi is playing, with the defense that Chris Dunn is playing, with whatever the hell has been going on with Jamal Murray and his hamstring of late, with the Nuggets and a new head coach, and Jokic is going to be awesome. But I still think that does Westbrook play at all? Is he good? Is he bad? I don't know. Could Westbrook just lose them a game on his own? Absolutely possible. With the way that Kawhi is playing, now Kawhi could get hurt at any point. We hope he doesn't. That would obviously change things. But the way that they're playing, I think the Clippers win this in 7, honestly. Maybe it is 6 that they get it done. I'm not going to rule that out, that getting it done in 6 is not a possibility for the LA Clippers in this game. Let's go to the Eastern Conference first round playoff picks. Take a look over there at how I see that one rolling. Again, we've got the unknown with the play-in. I do believe that Atlanta wins that first play-in game. So I think the Cavs they're gonna either be against Orlando, Miami, or Chicago. And you could throw Atlanta in there as well if you think that Atlanta loses that first game and wins the second game. It's all a possibility. All that stuff can happen. I 100% do not believe that it matters at all. I think the Cavs are sweeping that series without really any question. Don't think it has any... I don't care who it is. Orlando, Miami, Chicago, Atlanta, it doesn't matter. Cavs 4-0 to me pretty clearly. The next one, the Celtics can only play 2 teams. So they get either Atlanta or Orlando. Orlando in the past has had some good moments against Boston, and even Atlanta has. Didn't Atlanta beat Boston in the NBA Cup and able to push them forward? Maybe they did that. I also don't really care. There's big injuries. Jalen Suggs a key player for the Magic. Jalen Johnson a key player for the Hawks that are not going to be there. The Celtics are fresh. They've rested. The worry is Jaylen Brown and his knee, but I think the Celtics are able to sweep this one relatively comfortably. I don't think that's even going to be close. The next series, I think, is close. And I debated this one back and forth. I don't like the way the Knicks construct their roster. Very sort of shallow, trying to eke out every little win that you can in the regular season by playing 1,000,000 minutes, meaning you don't really have extra gears to go in the playoffs. What you see from the Knicks in the regular season is sort of what you see in the playoffs because these guys are playing 39 minutes anyway with 8 and 7-man rotations. So what does Tibbs go to? Nothing. There's no change. You can't lean into things differently. So that's what, not that it doesn't make the Knicks worse. It means that what you see from the Knicks in the regular season is basically just the same. There's no difference. There's no holding something back. There's no, well, now we'll get our best players into 40 minutes a game instead of 34. None of that happens. So what you see is what you get. And while it's been an amazing season for Detroit, I don't know that they get there. But in saying that, I think the Knicks win in 7. I think it's close. Who's the best player in this series? Is it Towns? Is it Brunson? Is it Cade? I think it's probably one of the Knicks guys. Although Brunson is coming back from an injury that he just came back from. Last season in the playoffs, he suffered a foot injury as well, and Towns has had knee issues and finger issues. Cade had that calf issue, which I don't think was a problem. It'd be interesting to see what the Pistons do with old mate Asar Thompson, because he could really go out there and create havoc, but we have seen JB Bickerstaff's reluctance to play him big minutes when Tobias Harris is healthy. The Pistons can cut garbage out of their rotation easily. They can play Tim Hardaway 20 minutes. They can play a lot of Beasley. They can cut Schroeder down if they want. They don't have to play Holland or Fontecchio. The Knicks don't have that ability. Cade can play 40. Duran can play 35. You can see those things change. Now, if they had Jaden Ivey, would it be different? Maybe they'd be better. I don't know. But I am going to take the Knicks in 7. And then we get to the last series. The Pacers did secure themselves home court advantage. They're taking on the Milwaukee Bucks, who almost assuredly will not have Damian Lillard. The Pacers have been one of the NBA's hottest teams over the second half of the season. Tyrese Halliburton is healthy. Siakam's slumping a bit, but he's healthy. I think they win in 6. The Pacers, it might even be 5. Doc Rivers is a legendary playoff coach, obviously. And I think that, Giannis is great, obviously. Bobby Portis coming back is important, but Kyle Kuzma's bad. You're trying to run Kevin Porter Jr. and Ryan Rollins as your point guards. I think that is not a particularly controversial or even difficult sort of statement to make, that I think that Indiana wins that in 6. So they are my playoff predictions so far for round 1. I'm going to come back and we're just going to go through the over-under preseason win totals as well. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by Open Phone. So when you're running a business, you know that every missed call, it's money left on the table. So when's the last time that you had like a service emergency? Like you're doing something, you need to do it. And if the first person that you contacted didn't answer, did you wait? Well, probably not. You just moved on to the next one. That's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications all through an app on your phone or your computer. You don't need to carry 2 phones. Here's my business phone, here's my personal phone. With Open Phone, you can manage the business calls and text from one app, whether you're on the desk or on the go. And there's a shared inbox as well that your team can jump into with any conversation without missing a beat. And they've got AI call transcripts and summaries to save you time on follow-ups and ensure that you never lose track of customer interactions. Open Phone is offering you guys 20% off the first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonnba. That is openphone.com/lockedonnba. And if you're switching from another service, Open Phone will even port your existing numbers over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. So now I thought what we do here at this point is go back and have some accountability for my over-under season win predictions or projections and talk about how they went. Let's go through them division by division. Just not going to talk a massive amount about them. Just go through and tell you what I had and how it all played out. The Atlantic Division is where we will start. Boston, New York, Toronto, Brooklyn, and Philadelphia. So Boston had an over-under win total of 58.5. They won 61 games. I actually pegged them under. I thought Porzingis would miss more time. I thought that they would be able to go a little bit easier during the regular season, knowing that they were good and there'd be a little bit of fatigue and championship hangover, plus Olympics stuff as well. But no, they went over that, and I got it wrong. The New York Knicks, they had an over-under at 53.5. I was very skeptical of the trades that they made and losing all of that depth, saying if they just cop an injury here, they are in real strife. They have no real NBA players. I think that I nailed that one. Well, I obviously did because I picked them at under 53.5 and they ended up winning 51 games. I actually picked them lower than that. I picked them at like 48 wins for the season. So obviously I was a little bit under what they ended up being, but the over-under win total went the under. For the Raptors, they had a total set at 28.5 and I thought this team would be bad. They were better than I expected. I went under 28.5. They ended up winning 30 games. And they were in that weird spot that if you are a team that is trying, Chicago, and you're in that 25 win sort of range and you're after the All-Star break and you decide to go for it, you can just get to 40 wins because the amount of teams that aren't trying, it's easy. You can just do this without a problem. Toronto sort of pulled back on it. So they won 30 games, Toronto, and they went over their 28.5, but they could have easily been a 39-win team, 40-win team, like, without really any question. So, yeah, got that one wrong. And even that 30-win mark doesn't tell the full story of their season. The Nets, they were under 19.5, and I thought that the move of trading Mikal Bridges to get their own draft picks back with that trade with the Rockets as well meant that they were going to lean heavily into this. But they didn't. They played their guys a lot. They did make trades, but Jordi Fernandez and the guys that he had were too good. And they won 26 games, Brooklyn. And now they're in a position where who knows what happens with this draft pick that they've got. It's very interesting that they had that Suns pick that they traded to the Rockets, that Suns pick could end up being higher than their own pick they traded back for, which again is, you wouldn't have picked Phoenix to be in that spot, but that's unbelievable, I think, a mismanagement of not making your team worse enough to really load yourself into that right spot. But yeah, I had them under and they didn't hit it. Philadelphia had a win total of 49.5, and I went under on that one. How far under did I go? Only barely. I had them at 49 wins, so I do get the under just, but they finished an unbelievable 24-58. Obviously, that part of the reason I went under was Joel Embiid and his health, and I had no real trust in that. I didn't think that he was going to be healthy really all season, and it just was incredibly worse than I expected. Paul George had fallen off a cliff, and it was bad. It was bad, and I got that one wrong. Let's go to the Central Division, because in this one is where things were a lot better for me in my prognostications. The Cavs were a team that I was pretty high on coming into the season. Their over-under, they won 48 the year before. Their over-under was set at 48.5, and I said that's an easy over for me. I picked them to win 51 games, and I was still miles off. They won 64. That is one of the biggest smashings that you will see. That is a huge, huge over. I nailed the over. They were unbelievable, 64 wins. The Pacers had an over-under set at 46.5, which from memory, when looking at it, I went, that's very low. That's a very low number. They won 47 the year before, and they expected them to get worse with a full season of Pascal Siakam and with Tyrese Halliburton not dealing with a hamstring injury. That one to me was an obvious over. I picked them at 49 wins. They won 50, so they go over 46.5 easily. The Bucks had an over-under at 49.5. I went under 49.5. They won 49 the year before. I actually picked them at 47. Obviously, just players getting a year older. Some worries about how they were going to play with Doc Rivers and all of that sort of stuff. I was a little concerned with them. I went under 49.5 and I hit it. The Pistons, I thought would improve. I thought it was tough to look at a team and project them to be more than 10 games better than they were the year before. They won 14 games the previous season. I predicted them to win 24. The over-under was set at 25.5. Instead, they won 30 more games. So, while I did think they would improve, and I thought they would get better, and I thought there was an upgrading coach, and I thought Cade was really good, I didn't think that this was anywhere close to possible, so kudos to them. The Bulls over-under was a ridiculous line. It was set at 28.5. We know who this team is. They're going to fight themselves into the play-in at whatever cost of sanity or their future. 28.5 is an insanely low number. That was an easy over. They ended up at 39 wins. I didn't pick them at 39. I picked them at 31 or 32. Was it 31? So I went over it by 3 wins, got the over on that one, and hit that pretty easily. In the other Eastern Conference division, we're talking about the Southeast, where not a single team was over 500 for the year. The Magic do win the division title with 41-41. Now, their win total was 47.5. And I thought that we'd get steps forward from Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, and we did. Unfortunately, those guys both missed multiple months with injury, and then Jalen Suggs, who was the key figure, honestly, in holding this team together, went down as well. They won 47 the year before. I thought they'd be a 49-win team, and they were not. So that one is wrong. The Hawks over-under was set at 36.5, which is obviously very low. They won 36 games the year before that. I thought we'd get more out of Jalen Johnson. People looked at that and went, all right, because DeJounte Murray is gone, they're going to be worse. And my thought on that was, I'm not sure that losing DeJounte makes them worse. I think that his fit was terrible. I went over. They went over. That's a W. The Miami Heat had an over-under of 43.5. I trusted in Eric Spoelstra. They had 46 wins the year before that. I knew there was stuff going on with Jimmy Butler. I didn't think that he would do what he did, and that derailed the first half of their season. Bam Adebayo forgot to shoot as well. So they were very clearly not over 43.5 wins. They won 37 games. I don't know what happened with me on this one. The Hornets over-under was set at 31.5, which in retrospect is insane. What? It was set higher than the Chicago Bulls. 31.5 is an insane number. And I said, yeah, I think they're going to put it together and be good. What is wrong with me? I guess I was saying, well, I think maybe I did it this time when Mark Williams was healthy and he hadn't strained his foot. I'm not sure about that. Thought LaMelo Ball would be healthy. And honestly, LaMelo Ball was healthy. And I know that you'll say he wasn't, Josh. He got shut down early. He was healthy. He started missing games with his ankle once the season had slipped away and they were tanking. And you can debate that with a wall if you want, but he played back-to-backs up until through Christmas and New Year. And then they started sitting games and Brandon Miller went down. Trey Mann was out. And then that's when all that stuff went awry. But yeah, that's still they won 19 games. That's embarrassing. I think they could have easily been a 26-win team had those injuries not struck and they'd not lent into tanking down the last 2 months of the season. The other one was the Wizards, who had an over-under the same as the Nets, 19.5. I thought they'd be bad. They very clearly were. I went under. They won 15 the year before. I predicted them to get to 18 wins, and they got 18. I banged that on the nose. The over-under was 19.5, so that one was correct. Let's go to the Western Conference now. The Thunder had a massive over-under at 57.5. They won 57 games the year before that, and they brought in Isaiah Hartenstein and Alex Caruso. That was an insane line at the time. Going over 57.5 seemed pretty easy. They did it. They got to 68 wins. Unbelievable team. One of the best teams we have seen in recent memory. The Nuggets had an over-under of 50.5, which is really low because they won 57 games the year before that. Now, I thought I was aggressive in dropping them down. I dropped them down to 52 games because I thought, hey, Jokic is a year older. Maybe he misses some time. Jamal Murray looks terrible in the Olympics. What is going on with this guy? They lost Kentavious Caldwell-Pope but didn't really replace him. Now, Christian Brown clearly stepped up. The Nuggets were able to go over that 50.5. Sorry, they weren't. They hit exactly 50 and 32. I had them at 52 wins. They missed their over-under by half a game, which, again, that's, call it a bad beat or whatever, but I missed it. The Timberwolves had an over-under of 51.5. They won 56 last season. I did have them taking a step back, but obviously not far enough. I had them down at 54 wins. They ended up winning 49. They went 49-33 with an over-under at 51.5. And this is a really good time. We saw this last season, that we saw the Final Four, the big four teams in the West: Oklahoma City, Dallas, Minnesota, and Denver. And as this you'll see it happen again this season, is that nearly every time all this stuff happens, people will be projecting stuff and they'll go, well, those are the four best teams, and they'll be the best four teams again, and they're the best four teams, and we think they'll be the teams that are battling for the conference finals. And every year, it doesn't happen. Every year, without fail, one of the top four teams from each conference does not make it back there. And I remember putting a tweet out there, which of these four teams, which everyone is just guaranteeing, pegging in as a top four team, is not going to be there. And honestly, I don't actually remember what people's major response was. I don't even remember what my response was, but we very clearly got teams in that top four. Dallas didn't get in there for very weird reasons, and Minnesota weren't able to be there. Denver barely got in, and then we had Oklahoma City clearly getting in. But two of those top four teams, and the same happened in the East. Boston, sure, they made it, but how about old mates, the Bucks? Were they even a top four last time? I'm sure. Philadelphia, not there, right? This idea that when you see the best four teams at the end of the playoffs, that'll just be what happens the next season, just bet against it. It won't happen. Portland, I thought they'd be terrible. And this is where, again, kudos goes to Chauncey Billups. I had them at under 20.5 wins, which, again, is really low. I thought they'd be exactly on 20 and 62. I thought they'd really lean into getting this last piece of their tank, but they won 36 games. It's a gigantic over. Huge over. And the Jazz, what an insane over-under. The Jazz was set at 27.5. Excuse me? They were set at 27.5. Now, they did win 31 games the year before. My rationale is I picked them at 23 to go down 8 games. My rationale was they won too many games in these seasons and they didn't tank properly, and they want Cooper Flag, so they're going to go hard. And that was 100% correct, so I hit that under really easy. 27.5. What a crazy number that is for the Utah Jazz over-under. Let's go to the Pacific Division, where we had two teams tie on 50 wins. The Los Angeles Lakers won 50 games. Their over-under was usually one of the best things you can do when looking at win totals in the preseason is go, okay, Lakers, very public team, let's bet the under. Vegas set them at 42.5. That was incredibly low. And I think I said this in the win total show. I go, normally I'm going to be like pushing against the Lakers. in terms of setting win totals, but this is insane. We have to go over this. I had them at 45 wins. They'd won 47 the year prior. So the over-under set them down at 7.5 fewer wins, which is crazy. Not 7.5, sorry. They're from 47 down to 42. It's 5 wins less. So I hit the over on that one. The Clippers, I was just massively wrong on. I didn't expect them to be anywhere near as good as this. I thought having no Kawhi and losing Paul George would be the end of them, but it wasn't. They were unbelievable. They were 35.5 as their over-under. I picked under. They won 50 games, smashed it. Had the Warriors under 43.5, and they won 46 the year before that. I had them at 42. They ended up with 48 wins, and a lot of that is one of the NBA's best records after trading for Jimmy Butler. So that sort of did turn their season around, but that's a W for them. The Kings were set at 46.5. Now, I was not big on that. They'd won 46 the year before that. I did not believe that adding in DeMar DeRozan and removing forwards out of your team and then trying to work out how the ball gets distributed between Monk and Fox and DeRozan and Sabonis would lead to anything good. And it didn't. So that one was a clear W. They won 40 games only. I had them at 42. I had them actually stepping back 4 games from their previous season, and they got way worse than that. So it's an under there. And then the Suns, man, this is terrible. 48.5 was their total. I thought that, yeah, they'll go over. Budenholzer will do things. He'll keep them healthy. He'll change them to a more modern game style. He's an unbelievable regular season coach. In the end, he was terrible. I had them at over 50 wins, and they were 36. Just a dreadful season, and they finished last in this division, which you couldn't have convinced me that would happen. In the Southwest Division, the Houston Rockets won 41 games the year before, and I said, okay, they took a big step forward. I'm going to get them to take another step forward. The over-under was 42.5. I went up to 46. They ended up winning 52, so it's a W over. The Grizzlies had an over-under at 46.5, and that was one of those ones where obviously they won 27 games the year before that, but they were getting guys back healthy. I thought they'd win 48, and they won 48, so I was bang on the nose with that, and that is over 46.5. The Mavericks, I thought, would be able to maintain their value. I thought they'd actually push over 50 because they would have a full season of Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington, Derek Lively in year 2, Luka and Kyrie doing their thing. And, of course, that didn't happen. I went over 49.5. They won 39. Luka was injured. Luka was traded. The centers got injured. They were just a disaster everywhere. Absolute disaster. The San Antonio Spurs had an over-under of 35.5, and I thought that was an insane number to jump to. They'd won 22 games the year before that. That's almost a 14-game jump. They almost got there, and if Wemby didn't get hurt, they would have. That's how good he is. I believe I said there is a possibility that Wemby is just this good that they actually push to 40 wins and make the playoffs. Now, they didn't, but maybe they could have. So, while I did hit the under, 35.5, I got that. They won 34 games. I think that that's a little lucky. The last one is the Pelicans, which, in hindsight, should I have been worried about Zion's health? I think I was. Should I have been worried about Brandon Ingram's health? I guess I was a little bit. I couldn't have predicted that A, DeJounte Murray would be terrible, and B, that he would tear his Achilles. I thought adding DeJounte Murray would make them a better team, and maybe we get moderate health, and that would push them to this spot. They'd actually won the Pelicans 49 games the year before. I thought that they'd be able to push even further and go over 45.5. In the end, they win 21 games. One of the worst injury hit seasons we've seen, and one of the biggest drop-offs that we have seen really in recent times. Not the biggest, but it's a pretty bad one. And that is a playoff preview. It's a season win total review. It is Jackie Robinson Day, and it is the first of the off-season shows. So double bang, hit the thumb down below. Tell me what you think about the playoff predictions and how you think that they're going to go and what you agree and disagree with. I'm sure that there'll be a lot of measured responses, and I'm excited to hear them. Good luck to you. I hope that I hope you won your fantasy championships, and B, I hope that you're going to sit back and enjoy the playoffs. Enjoy it. Hopefully it's your team. Hopefully we get some good basketball. Pretty sure we will. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.